What if I told you the way it has always been done is not the best way? Facing your fears will change your life. The passion behind this journey is merging two separate worlds into one with the goal of creating value and awareness for a better life.
I'd rather be sidelined trying to achieve greatness than watch greatness achieved and it only set on the sideline. Now introducing your host, Jacob Emery.
This episode is brought to you by R&R Pipeline, an infrastructure company. Our purpose? Enhancing America's infrastructure with a safety-driven, integrity-led culture that provides an environment for team members to grow and thrive. This pursuit is to help other people.
Yep.
And the side effect has been me enhancing my communication skills, learning a lot. My network has expanded like a ton because of this. I met some really cool freaking people.
You just never know who's listening, Jake.
You never know who's listening. And I've told you a couple people listening.
Yeah.
And it's like, I had no idea. But that's the whole
you didn't.
value in the pursuit.
Yes.
And that goes back to like,
I don't know who's watching this project either.
You never know. But
I have an idea, you know what I mean? Like that somebody's watching and thinking, man, there's a lot going on over there. What's this guy got in store?
Right. And that's the part that the unknown, the curiosity is so much fun. That's why challenges are only as challenging as what you make them.
Yeah.
Because we both have had problems with our pursuits. This is a problem this could be a perceived problem right now, and it could, if you sat there and dwelled on it, it could get so much bigger.
Oh, yeah.
But then I come out, I'm like, man, this doesn't look bad at all, G. And you're like, it's squashed, right?
Well, because, your perspective is because you actually do this and I'm just out here I just know if there's less water, I'm going to win faster.
Right. But in life, problems become so much bigger than what they actually are because of the consistent thought of the problem and not the opportunity or solution that could become of it.
Yeah, that I was feeling really good about. Literally, I FaceTime Randy and said, hey, remember when those walls they used to have us building the mine? I think I got a situation where I need to haphazardly put one of them together. I was asking him the stuff that we were putting on the outside of the walls, the way we built, all this stuff. He was reminding me of stuff, and I was like, this is what I got going on. And then I sent him a picture back. He said, dude, I'm really proud of you. That looks pretty damn good. I said, yeah, it's coming together.
But
you know what I mean? It was cool.
The foundation, that, you wouldn't have thought of that if it weren't for the coal mining.
No, I would have had no clue. Right. Like I would have known it needed to happen, but I actually built walls that look like that before in my past. It's just been 25 years. It's
like Steve Jobs talks about it with Apple or did with dropping out of college. So his story is absolutely incredible. Mm-hmm. And, he was adopted, and the people that adopted him had to promise that he would go to college. And I think they were blue collar, middle class income. Mm-hmm. And he went to like the highest college, as far as pay that you could. And he went to like 2 semesters and then dropped out. Mm. And after he dropped out, he went to a calligraphy class. And that's where Apple got their design. And he talks about connecting the dots, how he did it because he's interested in it. Yeah. He had no idea that he would change the literal world with that class, because that's where the Apple design and everything stemmed from, was that calligraphy class. The way that Apple's design and everything stemmed from that. So it's connecting the dots and looking at that, like everything happens for a reason. And it doesn't happen to us, it happens for us if we use it that way.
Well, I think that's also the glass half full, glass half empty type of situation. Everybody's perspective is a little different, and you can change your perspective. And I could find 20 things right now here that I could be negative about. Mm-hmm. Or I could choose to find the 10 things that are really fucking positive. You know what I mean? And how far we've come and the things I've learned. So it's like, I just think there's 2 ways to live the life. Yeah. There really is. And they can get cloudy between the 2 of them, but the reality is if you choose the other one, I just think the choosing the positive side is just, you're dealing with the negative, but choosing the view and the solutions and being the positive side, it's just a different way to live. And I just feel like it's a more fruitful way to live.
Being optimistic and positive is not being blind to reality.
There you go. But I think that's what a lot of people think.
I think it's not rainbows and unicorns, right? It doesn't mean that the work isn't going to be hard, that it's not going to be a challenge.
Oh, I expect it to be hard.
That's why we do it, though. Yeah. That's what we appreciate.
Oh, I expected this whole thing to be very difficult.
Right.
But I expected the outcome to be, look, you take on pursuits of things that are difficult, so you can then in turn, once you master them or accomplish them, you can do things that others can't do.
Right.
That's what it is.
100%.
And that's like what I knew this thing was and is. And I really started to take that approach as I started walking out here. Like, I can see myself as an old man, probably just out here in my canoe every morning and fucking working out and doing things, and hopefully having like really impactful conversations with people for the rest of my life, like this here, Jake, that want to come and potentially interview me, or
Right.
I'm interviewing them.
Right.
Like, that's, I think, one of my probably things I'll do content-wise.
It's an experience that is one of a kind.
Yes.
You can't buy it. You can't go anywhere else and get it. And that in itself is powerful. Like,
Super powerful. And I'm looking forward to that part of how I'll be able to give back to younger entrepreneurs or people that want to change their lives. And, you know, it really is up to you, the person. I mean, 100%. You have to take it by the horns. You've got to fucking really believe it. And you got to be willing to do all of what it takes. And it is very difficult. But but I tell everybody, it is 1,000,000% worth it.
1,000,000% worth it. And what the outside perception is of the success criteria. So where you're sitting today, people were probably jealous and envious of your success. I promise you, if they had any idea of what your day-to-day looks like, of the amount of hard work and the adversity that you went through, nobody would take on that challenge of adversity to get your success.
Some would and some wouldn't when they knew.
Right.
Like, would you sign up for that?
Right.
I think people would think twice about it, because I've thought twice about it.
Yeah.
I'm already too deep now on all the projects, right? But the reality is, there has been times that I'm like, when a thing would be done, a portion of my life would change and shift, I'd be like, would I sign up for that again? And the answer has always been yes. Now, everybody can go back and make some different decisions, of course. But the reality is, I just wouldn't change it. I even tell my mom, like, when I speak about my childhood, like the difficulties, like, I'm glad it was that way.
It happened for you.
I would not be me. I just
That's
had
it.
to choose to be me.
Yeah.
That's all it is. I mean, it's a choice.
So if you can be in a bad mood for no reason, you can be in a good mood for no reason. If you see a good outcome, that's what you're going to have, regardless of what it actually is.
Yeah.
If you see a bad
all
outcome, it's
perspective.
going to be bad. So perspective is huge. But also understanding you have to create a better past.
Yeah.
Your story and how you tell it and how you perceive your past and adversity and all that, it's only as good as what you create out of it. So if you dwell and create this negative past, how are you going to have a bright future?
Yeah.
You cannot have all this adversity be the thing that weighs you down and expect to overcome it if it's the weight.
Yeah. Oh, and it's heavy.
It's heavy.
It's heavy, and everybody has it.
Yes.
That's the thing, is everybody has shit they
Yeah.
don't like or wish didn't happen to them, and
Yeah.
we all have those things. You either basically give up and just keep down whatever path, or you flip it and you make it a positive and you use it as a driver. I'm just glad I took that anger and upsetness. I actually had a great conversation with my daughter the other day. I said, I know, she's a sophomore in high school. I said, Mad, you got to understand that I hated everything pretty much about my life at the point where I was when I was your age, except for my mom, my grandma, my grandfather. Like, I had great people, a group of people that were supporting me. But the reality is, all of the circumstances I fucking hated. I was embarrassed by my trailer. I was embarrassed by my car. I hated that we didn't have money. I hated there was no financial IQ. I hated that there was no, I disliked it all.
Yep.
And so, like, I was like, I took that anger and I put it into the lifting.
Yep.
And then I felt better. And then I started realizing I need more of this. Like, I need to feel like this is what's going to allow me to hopefully change this thing.
Right.
I didn't know that I was going to be able to do it as my job and all those things, but I kept going towards this is making me better. And I just kept going towards that process. And she actually, it was cool because, like, probably 2 weeks later, she had to do a 3-minute speech in a class, and she used that as the speech. And she took in one of my posters with my abs and shit. It was hilarious. And the teacher was like, what are we looking at here, Madeline? She's like, oh, this is my dad. But she explained, shout out Madeline. But she explained that process, and it made me really proud, because in that moment I was articulating it, that whatever you dislike about whatever things she was going through that we were talking about, you have the ability to channel it and change it.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, we're going to do the best job we can as parents, but our kids will still have things they dislike. And I know that, so I'm okay with it. And then
It's
they
part
have a
of it.
chance
Yeah.
to change what they want to change.
There has to be adversity in your life, or you're never going to get anything out of it. You're never going to feel internal gratitude and
Yeah.
success if you don't have adversity. I honestly think a lot of the lack of happiness in
Yeah.
this generation now is
A lot of it's
obviously
based around-
a lot
too
of it is
comfortable.
perception on social media and all the different things, but
That is definitely a
a
problem.
non-productive person is never going to feel joy. I truly believe that. Like if you cannot accomplish things and check a box that you did something,
You're not going to feel joy.
you're not going to feel like happiness and joy in life.
The pursuit, the process, the ups, the downs, the wins, the losses, that is part of the joy. So a lot of people would say that when they would look back, building is where their most fun was. And it was also the hardest.
Because
and so
it's-
when you
yeah.
get to the end and somebody buys it or you sell it or whatever it is, or you're done, you retire, you don't remember that moment. Maybe for a split second, you remember all the locker room moments,
Yep.
all the banding together
Yep.
and let's fix this. And
Yep.
that's what you remember.
It is back to that process, the time spent in between deadlift sets with us chalking it up. All these little incremental things that, like, we sat down yesterday for 20 minutes after our workout and something hit me by looking at a tractor tire outside.
Yeah.
And I wrote a book in the morning.
Yeah.
I took 35 minutes and did audio for a book, and it'll be done in a couple weeks.
That's so cool.
And like, all of that is the compound effect of discipline over time and all this other stuff. That idea hit me accidentally, but it wasn't an accident because the time had been
You
applied.
put yourself in that position to let that happen.
It was just the time.
Yeah.
It all came together. And like that pursuit and that discipline, oftentimes we don't know why we're doing it. It's not directly for something that we're pursuing.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, so like this project here, you were confident in it because of years of like discipline and overcoming obstacles and just willingness to only
And
be able.
partly because you own a ditch witch.
Oh yeah, that helps too. He just bought a brand new one before, but whenever you see the end and you know with the vision that you want this
Yeah.
thing to happen and you know what the first step looks like, that's where life evolution happens. For me, what the hell are you doing with your life? I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm a 20-year-old.
You really didn't know the answer.
I really didn't know the answer. I wasn't doing anything, and that was the problem. I couldn't answer a question about my own life.
Yeah, that probably hit hard.
That's when I learned that.
And you knew I knew what I was doing with my life.
Right. Yeah, that's why I was there in the first place.
Because you were seeing it.
And I didn't even know what you were working on. I didn't know about MP at that point.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was like right when you were
That's
doing all
true.
the heavy lifting for MP.
That is true.
I did seen this dude that was super passionate about lifting weights, grinding it every morning. I didn't even know you were getting ready to build a massive
Yeah.
supplement company.
Then you
that
saw it on UFC.
changed the industry. And then I'm on the road in Jackson, Ohio at a Comfort Inn and on Spike TV after working that day.
Yeah.
You're sitting there training Rampage.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah,
like,
because it was on
yeah.
that special. I
And
forgot
I'm
about
like,
that.
holy shit.
That's G right there. Training
I know
Rampage on
this
TV.
guy. Yeah. So like it just showed me at that point too. It was like that next notch. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know there's something here, and I don't know what I want.
That's so funny. I forgot that you saw that
Yeah,
special that
dude.
we shot at the
Dude,
office.
it was crazy. And
And you saw that, like, not knowing it happened. That makes it
dude,
even better, Jake.
I'm
That's so
coming
good.
in, no idea that Muscle Farms even. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm walking in after a hot day, like in the summer, covered in mud, dirty as fuck, and borderline like miserable.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm like, oh. And it was like that subtle reminder at that point, 6 months ago, what the hell are you doing with your life? I'm not doing the shit I need to. I am becoming a product of my environment, not making my own environment and being a product to help
Yeah.
other people. And
Here's-
like, I didn't know that then.
Here's the other thing that's interesting is too, and I think that a lot of people need to recognize this when things like that happen. You're like, I was just in the room with this guy. I've had that happen a lot to me where, you know, maybe I was a little mildly lost for a second, right?
Right.
Because it happens. It doesn't just stay, we're awesome. Fuck it. It doesn't work that way. And I'm like, wait a second. I was just around that person the other day and hearing them talk about these things. And now I'm seeing it here. Well, if I'm in the vicinity, then
Right.
why am I not pursuing what I'm seeing is happening, which is, I think, kind of what clicked for you a little bit.
Yeah, it's
probably.
like a accidental inspiration.
Yeah.
Like just another reminder. And I know with this journey in itself, I've had countless times where I'm like, man, is this really worth it? And I would question it just a little bit,
Well,
knowing
people-
that it was
yeah.
already worth it. But
Sure.
I would question it, and then someone would message me
Yeah.
that I had known for 10 or
The
15
timing.
years, and that I hadn't talked to you for 4 or 5 years, and reach out and say, man, what you're doing is awesome. This changed my life.
So good.
Like I started listening to you 30 days ago, started working out again, started hydrating, and my life has changed.
Awesome.
And like Josh Akers coming on our pipeline, you know.
Yeah, Josh
that
Akers is a
example's in
great
itself.
story, man.
Dude.
If you haven't listened to that podcast, make sure you go back and
Yeah,
listen to
and
Josh
he's
Akers.
going to be on more for sure because his story is incredible and like he understands it now.
Oh yeah, you can feel it on Josh Akers. He knows.
Whenever he comes in the office, I gave him another workout the other day, and I'm writing some of his programming because of mobility issues and all the
Sure.
same shit we went through. And he texts me, he's like, man, that was brutal. Like that killed me. And I'm like, is it too much volume?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I just had to push harder than I really wanted to, but it's what I needed.
There
And I'm
you
like,
go.
that is the only right answer.
Love that answer.
That is the only right answer you can have.
Love that answer. That's funny because there is the times when you start to like get more aware. You're like, yeah, that sucked ass, but that's what I should be doing today. Yeah, I believe that to be very true. A lot of this stuff is just pushing yourself to another spot, realizing what's capable, realizing what you're capable of. And when you get through things, like you just build that next notch of confidence.
Dude.
And I think that when you do have some success, it's easy to kind of chill out a little bit.
Right.
And like, that's why I think that this project is really good for me. I mean,
Yeah.
it was actually amazing for me, and it will be for my family. I know that on a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
levels, but the reality is for my, I guess, next level of what I'm going to build, it's exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
Exactly what I needed.
And you didn't know it was, a year ago today, you would have laughed at the.
Bro, I found it
even
on fucking
thought
Zillow. I found it on fucking Zillow.
So I remember that day vividly because it was a Thursday at the gym, maybe working out for a half hour, and you're like, yo.
I literally probably said that too.
You did. You're like, yeah, Dustin Lynch hit me up. He was tweeting me, like, talk about follow me for years in the programming. And you're like, he's some country singer and I don't listen to country. Like you talk about that, like
Yeah.
we're laughing about it, just like Jake Owen. You're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
hey, I remember you calling me like, hey, do you know who Jake Owen is? I'm like, yeah, G, I don't live in a fucking box. Like, but
Jake's such a homie too. He's
yeah,
awesome.
he is such a good fucking dude
Just
too.
a great dude.
Jake Owen, I still want to buy your Camaro, by the way. I'm calling you out.
Shout out.
Yeah. But you said that, and then you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to buy an island. Or I'm looking at buying an island. Like, but there's one concern. Like, I can't get utilities out there. And I'm listening to you, like, I'm like, all right, I'm going to put some chalk on his hand because I'm about to smack this motherfucker.
Yeah.
And you're talking about this thing that goes underground, and I'm like, gee, I got 5 of those.
I had no
And
clue.
I just remember you showing me the quote for the one that was already there. And I was like, I don't need to see it all. I seen what I needed. I got you.
yeah.
And the iron, man, back to the iron, the confidence over time that the weights and the equipment and the background for me instilled the confidence in me that instilled enough confidence in you to buy the island. And here we are. It's done.
It's done. That was such a huge win, bro. Such a huge win. And just like, and I knew you were saying it with confidence, but I also could see that you knew it was going to be difficult.
Well,
right?
it got way more difficult than what I had
For sure.
imagined. But
And I thought all this whole process was going to be that way. But it was like, I was like, all right, Jake's not going to say that to me if I don't believe he can actually pull it off. And then I'm just going to go write this check and and take this loan out and go fucking full go. And I remember walking into Tyler's office like the next week or whatever and just saying, bro, I got no shot at getting this done if you don't help me. Will you come and like be my, my GC basically, or like my operating and make some extra money? And he was like, I was like, yeah, I mean, you were in natural gas, like that counts. Like we'll be good.
it's underground. We gotta do some groundwork. So
Oh man,
Yeah.
it just, this has been really good for, I think, all the guys at the office, everybody that's been around it, just because it just, once again, not only reminded me, but reminded others around me. Whoa.
because there was no reasoning for you to be successful in this because
No.
it's so far out of anything that you've ever done.
Not even close.
And I think that's probably the thing that's probably going to impact the guys at Max the most because they haven't seen some of the challenges you've taken on from ground zero, and they've seen this.
yeah,
and
this is really good for them to
The
see.
ability to manifest, visualize, but to actually do it, because you can sit around and plan and manifest all day, But
Oh.
you got to push. You got to take the action. And the action part of the visual is what is the separator. I know people with a lot of great ideas, and there will be great ideas until they die, and they will never have been seen through.
Well, I kind of sound like a dick when I say this, but I know a lot of people with great ideas, and I beat them every day because I'm putting action around mind. It's just what it is, bro. And so, like, I looked at this as, motherfucker, this thing sat here for 100 years, and within 1 year, I did more than what anybody had done in 100 years. Ever. In the history of whenever this became an island. So, to me, it's like that challenge, the risk, I don't know. It just seemed like once I committed, I really haven't thought of anything else other than, here's what I keep visualizing. Sitting on the porch over there. I'm out in the morning. I'm looking at the businesses that are doing well. I've even visualized of how much each one of them is making, what's going on, what my day is going to be like, how my family and friends can enjoy this on a regular basis. I think about it every day.
Right.
And it's not that far away from becoming true. All the way true.
And when it comes true, it's going to not feel like this milestone accomplishment because you've already seen it and felt it so many times.
So many times, Jake.
5 years ago, probably about right now, I signed my life away. For 8 years of solid, true pursuit and understanding of that, because I set that goal at 22.
Mm-hmm.
At 22 to 30, laughed at, mocked at, told it would never happen, told to be safe, be secure. $37,000 net worth. 4 months before we're closing on a multi-million-dollar purchase, and I had seen that day. I expect that result now.
Yeah.
And I expected it then. And it didn't feel like this overwhelming joy because I already knew that it was going to, I visualized it actually happening. And I have the same thing with the TED Talk. In 5 years, I'm going to be on a TED Talk.
I love it.
I have visualized that speech so many times.
I love it.
And how we're going to change an industry.
Can I come and watch?
You might be up there with me.
That'd be awesome.
But like I have visualized that in my head. And why? Because to think that someone who could not read and write very well, that still has grammar of a third grader, that relies on my assistant, Dane, with all the superpowers, shout out Stephen Nooner and superpowers, Ryan Kaysen. But to think that I can't even organize my life very well, that I'm going to go do that, is seemingly impossible.
Yeah.
I can't communicate well. I talk in circles sometimes. Like all these like setbacks is the reason why I'm going to go do that.
Amazing.
Because I know.
I'm here for it.
I know that if I haven't got what I want out of life, I'm not worthy of it. And so what I have to understand is I suck, and it's okay to suck. It's okay to admit it. But now I know that I have to get better. And so admitting that you suck at something, but you want it, if you truly want it, acknowledge the reality of the situation. And like if you're not making as much money as you want, it's because you're not worthy of it.
That's
but it's
okay. That's a hard one to swallow because it's telling you that you need
you're
to
not
get
as
better.
good as you think you are.
You're not as good as you think you are. I had a guy tell me that right before I started Muscle Farm, and that was a hard one to swallow.
But
I was a little bit delusional in a bad way, and honestly, there was an arrogance to that. Like I thought I was so great, but my numbers weren't equaling it. Well, it's because I wasn't yet,
right? Or
I wasn't ever going to be. Like I needed to just get better.
Yeah,
and that's it. I needed to get better, and then I was like, that's what I have to focus on. Yes. That's why I said with this thing, you got to get the reps out the way.
Dude,
you got to get in it and get moving, because the sooner you can get it rocking, the faster you can get where you want to go.
If you don't face that fear becomes your limitation.
Of course, 100%.
And when you understand, like in my situation, I was being truly humble with good intent and a lot of hard work. But I knew that I wasn't good at this, but I knew that if I applied myself, if my output is as high, my outcome should be much better.
For sure.
It's almost like a mathematical equation. The more reps you put in, the better you become.
It is a mathematical equation.
And it's so much more, though, than what people can perceive. And the hardship of what it actually takes to do these things is 10 times more than what could ever be imagined at the beginning of it.
But it's so much more fulfilling.
It is. And that's why success is about the internal gratitude that you have for the journey.
Everybody's definition of success is different.
It is.
It's really not it starts out being a number thing, but it ends up not being a number thing. But you can't, it's so easy. And I remember thinking this exact same thing. Oh, this guy on this video is saying, oh, it's not about the money. Well, until you had money, you can't say that. It's just what it is, right? It's easy to be like, fuck that dude, you know?
Right.
But the reality is, once you know that you can produce X amount to create your lifestyle, there has to be something else.
Yeah.
There has to be something else. And the impact is the something else.
Yep.
And honestly, like being able to inspire other people to go live their thing, and even checking them with these weird little offhanded comments if they end up being in something. I get more value and more excitement out of watching my younger dudes grow up and become things and create things. And I always just tell them, like, just let me be a little part of it. You know what I mean? And, you know, coming on your show and seeing from episode 1 to now, it's all part of the process, man. And it's pretty awesome to be a part of things like that.
Yeah.
It's really fulfilling.
You know, being a student of the game and then transitioning into a teacher.
Yeah, it's cool.
So I know so many people that want you to believe that they are a teacher in the game of business or whatever their individual, you know, lane is. You can tell right away. Me and you can. Some people can't, but we know right away if someone is really about it.
Yeah.
And that person is about it. They might have imposter syndrome or just a lack of awareness. But oftentimes, what I've seen is a lot of time the student doesn't feel like a fraud because they're learning from somebody and they're acknowledging that.
Facts.
But when they try to become a teacher is when they get exposed. So no students feel like a fraud for what they're doing because they're not trying to help other people and teach other people something or not knowing what it is. So whenever you're trying to learn something and you're in the pursuit of it, you're relatively humble because you don't know, and that's what growth is all about.
Agreed.
And when you get up to teach the class, though, with a bunch of students, and you have never done it before, it's when you really show that you haven't worked hard enough, that you're not actually a teacher, and that you need to sit back down and be a student longer because you're not worthy of teaching because you don't know what you're doing.
Well, I think this main point is you're always a student, number one, to some degree, to someone.
1,000%.
You're always a student to someone because someone always knows more, right? The second thing is I only speak on stuff I've experienced and went through.
Being vulnerable and willing
you can't fucking test me if I've already lived it.
Yeah.
Because so I'm not going to talk out my ass if I don't know it. And so I would even rather say, yo, I never did that. So I can't teach you that.
Right.
But I can just teach you what I know. Is it backed up by science? Is the training we did? I just know what I know and what I've seen.
Yeah.
And the reality is if you stay in those areas because you've had outcomes and you're just literally really telling the story about it, which becomes a teaching moment, I don't think you can really lose.
No.
And then that lesson is not for everybody, by the way.
Right.
It's for some.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody. And I've realized that a long time ago too.
We are for anybody and our lifestyle is for anybody, but it isn't for everybody.
No, it's not for everybody.
And it's
not a chance.
It's okay not to know what you're doing. So it's normal to not know what you're doing. If you did,
I've really embraced it here. I love that part.
If you did know what you were doing, it wouldn't be called growth.
Correct.
So like back to the fear, like high five your fear, uncertainty, and the doubt, and just know that it's okay if you get tired and sad and hungry, misunderstood and pissed, like whatever. That just means that we're human.
Yeah,
we don't need medication for it, G. We're just human.
Yeah.
And that is our struggle, and that's okay. And like when you understand it's just part of the process, it doesn't hurt that bad.
No. Rachel told me when she saw the video of the seawall, she goes, this is like what you do. You love that you have to build the seawall. I said, well, I don't know if I love it, but I don't run away from it because I know it's what's necessary.
Yeah.
And I know that I like being resourceful because to me, that's solution-based situations. And at the end of the day, that's how you win. And so like, I don't know, it's made me way more curious in this space of things. Mm-hmm. Once again, I think I'm going to stay towards like, if it's in my lifestyle and I'm creating things I see, then I'm not going to go out my ass and think, oh, now I can build in a fucking apartment complex somewhere. You know what I mean? But the reality is I'm now built some blocks of confidence that, you know, if I go to do this next, I'm feel real strong about what I can do. And then so I just think that there's building blocks, and there's a lot of clues in some of these processes that you shouldn't ignore, and that you should be. It's okay to actually have true confidence through a situation,
regardless of skill set.
Yeah, and
right?
then work on it from there. So I don't know. I really think that once again, this whole situation has taught me so much about myself, and is going to teach me a lot more. And I think that it's such a stretch situation that the possibilities of what actually is going to happen here, in like most things in my life that have mimicked these type of like things, it's bigger than I can even understand.
And that's where I was getting ready to go.
Yeah, I know. And I know that from experience. I can't, but I was saying stuff at Men's Health, like, oh, the next shoot will be at Muscle Island. You guys cool with that? Like, what's that about?
What's a Muscle Island?
Yeah,
right?
they were like, well, we should definitely come there. I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
But that's the thing, though. You know it's something big.
Yeah,
I know it's something big. It's so much bigger than what we know now.
I think
I
that's
can almost
that's
guarantee
very true. Yes,
it's going to be bigger, and we throw some crazy ideas out there.
Yeah.
But it's just a climb up this mountaintop on that highway to our success. And like I talk about the 2-lane road that I visualized, for the longest time, and then personal development, getting better, applying myself, the application and what the result was.
Mm-hmm.
And now like a 200 lane that's under construction every day is what I view the world like.
Yeah.
But we already know, because it's happened looking back and reflecting, what we thought was going to be the outcome. It was 10x that, and we couldn't even see it.
No.
But it was a byproduct of our application.
I couldn't see a lot of the things that what they turned into. And so I'm just hopeful that if I just keep on the process that there is that, but maybe there isn't, but I would say there probably is.
Well, I look at the journey for me for Arnold Pipeline. That was my big, hairy, audacious goal, right? That was the big one that, like, we all had that first milestone.
Of course.
And that was like the holy grail, the Mount Everest accomplishment.
You had to prove that you could do it, Jake.
I did.
And then you still have to prove, obviously, on a daily basis, right? You have to show up for your guys, for the gals in the office, for everybody that's out there. You have to show up to be able to make that payroll, make that business go, and continue to lead it with Cody, right? And the reality is that you didn't realize that was the actual like thing. When you signed that paper, it wasn't the actual day of the signing the paper. It's like, oh, now the commitment just got real.
12 years of all in for one goal. Nobody.
But it was really just the start of the goal.
It was. And that's the thing about it. Like, that's what I never understood. I thought buying R&R Pipeline and proving the world wrong was going to be the thing that created success for me, and it wasn't. Because 2 days after, I felt nothing. And what I realized, that 12 years for one goal, all the chips were in, the sacrifice, the possibility of losing my house, my ability to
that's a real situation too.
It was real. And I didn't have a pot to piss in when we closed on the business.
Yeah.
And then I realized 2 days after, I don't feel any gratitude. I don't feel successful at all for doing this. Like, I knew it was going to come.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't understand why. And I thought that the accolade of the accomplishment would be the success criteria. And what I realized was it was just part of the journey. And this mountaintop that is so high up, this Mount Everest, this perceived never accomplishable thing, when you get up on that mountaintop and you start looking around, like I did, what I realized 5 years ago was, I'm up on this mountaintop. It's cloudy up here, man. I'm up in the clouds, and it's all great. Everything, life is good, right? I've accomplished this milestone, but what I didn't realize was it was cloudy, and when the cloud cover moved, that mountaintop wasn't the mountaintop. It was just a stepping stone to the next mountaintop.
Yeah, I feel that.
Understanding that the mountaintop and standing up on it isn't what the success criteria is for me. It was the climb up to that spot.
Yeah.
And it's really the person that we become. That mountaintop 5 years ago, I can't even see when I look back because of who I am. And what was so high up now is barely visible in the distance.
Yeah.
Because of who we become as people.
Well, I had a moment like that. So where I'm from, back in the Ohio Valley, the Steubenville Mall had a GNC in it, right? Which is like they have A, B, C, and D stores. It's a D store, so it doesn't have a ton of shelf space. And I remember, dude, when I was maybe in 9th grade, there's this guy who used to steal creatine and I'd buy it half off. Because creatine was like $80 when I was a kid. It was crazy.
I remember.
Yeah, so it's like one of them things where...
How about them margins?
Yeah, bro. So I literally would buy creatine hot, which is fucking hilarious.
Yeah, that's epic in itself.
Yeah, right? Because I was such a meathead.
Yeah. Black market creatine.
Amazing. But I remember going in the day to that GNC and my product was on the bottom shelf. The first assault with the chains and all the hologram.
Yeah.
And AG was, oh man, maybe 3 years old or something.
That's wild.
He's
dude.
little. He walks in with me. I have a picture. I'm like, it's when I was like 230. So I'm all big.
All swelled
all
up.
swelled up.
Yeah.
AG's little. And we're crouched down. And there's no way that I didn't think in the beginning of that process that like when I got to that point that that was the mountaintop. I am at GNC with my own supplement company in the town. I used to buy creatine that some dude would steal from me because I was such a meathead. And it was literally such the beginning of the process. It was unbelievable, Jake.
Yeah.
Such the beginning of the process that like, it was even hard to acknowledge that wasn't the end of the process. It wasn't even the beginning hard. I mean, it was like,
that was your first opportunity to start growing.
Oh, dude,
And
just
you
to
didn't
believe it
realize
was
it.
possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and then, fast forward 5 years later, I'm sitting in the, high-rise office of the CEO of GNC as his friend.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about big deals and I'm confidently handling it. And it was, and I was much leaner then too.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just, it's cool to acknowledge that those are positions that, you maybe thought could never happen, but a lot of times it's the beginning of it. And I feel like that's probably what this is too, what we're sitting on,
So the ultimate accomplishments in life ultimately come from the setbacks and the failures in adversity. I think there is something truly powerful in not being gifted.
Yeah, for sure.
So you think
as much as you want to be.
As much as I wanted to be that guy that was a natural athlete,
Of course,
and that was easy to keep weight off. Like I'm sitting here at 14 and 15 years old. I remember buying salads for lunch, and this dude next to me is drinking Mountain Dew, eating pizza and cookie dough, shredded up, and barely does anything. And I used to be so furious, dude, I just didn't fucking get the genetic lottery.
Yeah.
And it was the best thing that ever happened. Because them genetic lottery winners and the people that always walk through life with ease,
if it's easy,
are struggling now.
Oh yeah.
Because they didn't have the foundation set like what we did. And whether it was our situation, whether it was wanting to be better or the pain of staying the same was so bad that change was the only option.
It was the only,
because it was.
It was either go down the bad path, the real bad path, or just dramatically change the whole thing. I don't know that there was an in the middle for both of us.
No
Either
way.
of us, honestly.
No. Well, no, there wasn't. I mean, I was
didn't
either
think so.
lifting heavy weights or facing heavy jail time.
Yeah.
And drinking lots of beer and fighting. And
eventually you're going to get yourself in a situation that you couldn't get yourself out of.
Because we're driven that way.
Yeah.
So there's a book, Driven. I don't know if you read it yet. I think I told you about it. But Dr. Doug Brockman wrote a book called Driven. And he talks about people like me and you. And I think
it's a red line behavior, isn't it?
So it's a genetic component that is very rare too. And I didn't realize this until I read the book. It's the D2, D4 or something gene. I forget the exact dialogue, but it's 4% of people in the world have the genetic component. And out of that 4%, 1% actually apply it in a good way. Your Navy SEALs, your firefighters, your high risk and performers and extreme people, and also your crackheads, your people in jail.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's that much different.
It's not. We're driven the same whether we're doing the right thing or the wrong thing.
I would agree with that.
Just figuring out what power the right thing can do for us and others, and actually perceiving it as an accomplishment.
Wow.
Is really
I've often
insightful.
thought that about myself, Jake, that I could have applied it in a very criminal, negative way, just the same.
Dude, I mean, we look at our backgrounds and what we came from, right? I could easily become a product of my foundational environment from a young kid. What I had seen, I could have easily been that person.
Oh, yeah.
I was just so damn stubborn and resilient and refused to be the same. that is the saving grace for me. Probably the same as you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because you talked some about your dad and like buying lottery tickets, and that could have easily been a crush for you.
Oh, I can feel it on myself. Like a lot of times, why I don't do like DraftKings or stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I don't gamble either.
I can
Like,
feel it in my genes. Like I think my life was already gamble enough.
I have gambled enough with business. That is my platform right now.
I would agree with that.
Like everything I do in business is the platform. That's enough gamble in my life. I don't need any other. Like,
I think we're sitting on one of my gambles, but it didn't feel that way. You know what I mean?
Gee, I don't know. This looks like a pretty strategic, well thought out plan. Are you sure you didn't have the exact perfect blueprint for this?
Yeah, right. Shit.
Perfect blueprints don't exist.
That's a fucking fact.
So here's another thought for you. Whenever someone comes to me and acknowledges a pain point,
Yeah.
I know what I use. So I always tell people, listen, there's certain things in life that you cannot control. You can't control the situation you had here.
No, it's the weather.
You can't focus on the thing that is out of your control. You got to focus on what you can. Come build a seawall. Hope it works. But that was within your control.
Yeah.
The rest of it wasn't.
Facts.
You cannot dwell on the uncontrollables because they will drag you down.
They eat you alive.
It's like a perfectionist thing where it's this ideal of this outcome that is not controlled.
Here, I got to tell you, that sparks a thought of something I tweeted the other day. It was like, be known for consistency because perfection doesn't exist.
Perfection doesn't
So
exist.
no one's going to say that dude's perfect because it doesn't exist. And if you're striving for that, it's really difficult. You're never going to meet. Now, you can strive to get better because I think Kobe would say I try to close the gap. You know what I mean?
Progress,
I get
not
that.
perfection, though.
Yeah, progress, not perfection. The reality is, though, I want to be known for a consistent person that people can count on that's a known winner. Because at the end of the day, the perfection part isn't going to happen. It just doesn't.
Perfection is an ideal that everyone has in a different light for their own ideal. So it is an unattainable goal.
Yeah.
It is something that cannot be achieved.
If you're up against an unattainable goal constantly, you're never going to be happy.
You're going to be miserable your whole
Yeah.
life. So whenever like that comes up, I say take all the things that are issues in your life and write them down, right? All the ones that are out of your control, economic issues, supply chain issues. I can't get plastic pipe. You can't get plastic bottles, right?
Yeah.
I can't dwell on it, so I have to figure out a solution and make this an opportunity.
Hence why the Max Up are in bags, not bottles.
Right. Shout out to the graphic gangster too.
Yeah,
Their
they're so
bags are
sick,
dope,
bro. Yeah,
man.
so sick.
So like you can't dwell on the uncontrollable. So mark out all the things out of your control. Just get rid of them. Put them to the side. Take the 3 things that are within your control. Prioritize them 1, 2, 3. What are the 3 things that if I overcame them would have the biggest return on investment and change my life the most? And them are the 3 things to focus on. So you have your top 3 priorities. Now you have to make them smart, specific. So you have to make it specific. You have to be able to measure it. It has to be attainable, realistic, and timely. So making it a black and white date on the calendar. I got to lose 30 pounds by August 1st, date on the calendar. That's my goal.
You got to know where you're going, bro.
If it's smart with that analogy, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. If you can look at something to pursue in that regard, it's black and white.
Yeah, that's true.
So if I tell you, I'm just trying to feel better. Well, what does that look like?
What does that even mean?
It's a perfectionist thing, right? It's an ideal that you can't measure. So if you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
That's true.
If you're going to go to a shoot, you know an ideal body weight for that shoot. That's where you want to be at. If you're doing powerlifting, you have a weight class.
Yep.
You want to check in. You have weights you want to hit. That's your measurement of success.
That's true.
If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And that is
Therefore,
so
you
powerful
can make
in
no
life.
real progress.
That's it. How do you know you're doing anything to get better if you don't have a way to like evaluate it from a measurable standpoint?
Well, in business, like really your money's your scorecard too.
Absolutely.
That's a way that you
The P&L is a scorecard.
Yeah.
What's my EBITDA?
Yep.
Yeah. What's EBITDA look like for last year? Okay. Did you win or did you lose? That's a simple success criteria in business, you know?
Ain't that the truth?
I mean, it doesn't get any easier than that. You know, the numbers never lie. They
Right.
really don't.
The numbers can have situations around them, but the numbers are black and white, and that's just what
They
it
are.
is.
So make your goals black and white, and then it's black and white whether you achieve them or not. And then life gets pretty clear after that.
It feels that way.
If I can measure it, I can manage it. And if I come up short That's okay too.
Yeah.
But at least I know where I came up short at to get to the ultimate goal.
I think that two things I've went over with a lot of people most recently is really defining where they're going, and second, reverse engineer that.
Yes. Start with the
Because-
end in mind always.
Because I just had a conversation with Dawn the other day about this. Like, if you know all the way what it's going to take, and I've done this with a lot of trainers that want to open gyms, what's it really going to take? What do you really have to make? How long can you live if you make X versus X if you quit your job? Like, sometimes it's more scary. Sometimes it's less scary.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's actually less scary, Jake.
Because you know.
Exactly. And I think and then when people see it, they go, we did this with Anthony Oliveira. And he's like, wait, that's definitely it's like, then you start to have this realization, like, wait, I can fucking do that.
Right.
But until you break it down like that, you don't really know.
Start with the end in mind and work back from there.
Yeah.
And like, back to that SMART analogy. So I want to achieve X. I want to buy our pipeline by the time I'm 30. I'm 22. Okay. Timeline.
Yeah.
Is it realistic? Yeah. There's 0.1% chance. So it's realistic enough for me to go for it. Right. Because that was my BHAG.
Yeah.
And that was the big, hairy, audacious goal that was set out. Is it specific? Yeah. Pretty specific. Can I measure
Very
it?
specific.
It's a yes or no. Is it attainable? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
The realistic part? I don't know. There is a certain point where our emotional intellect is the driver, not the logic behind the situation. If we were analytical about every decision we made, we would not make a lot of them.
No.
There has to be a visual and confidence component that overrides the logic.
For sure.
Because I can tell you that
A lot of my shit ain't logical, bro.
logic would have never told me that R&R pipeline was something that was achievable. But my belief and my confidence and the ability to face the fear made it that way. And so many times we have to understand that fine line. Is it logical? Is it irrational?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that our gut feelings are always right. You know, like there's a lot of times where I thought something was going to kill it and it falls flat on its face.
That's true.
But what did that do afterward? That created a ability for me to see something and know whether it's worth or not pursuing.
It also contributed to whatever did end up killing it.
I've had a lot of ideas before this podcast that I thought were great, and then I figured out they were really dumb and really bad. And 90% of my ideas are probably bad.
But that one that works.
That one. 99% of the time, the world has been right about who I was and what I was going to do. 99% of the time, they're right. That one time that I was right made me 100% right.
That's facts. People say, I've seen a lot of podcasts and a lot of business guys, you only really need one or two things.
That's it.
You know, most guys that are serial entrepreneurs will go through a couple different businesses, but the reality is you need one to prove it.
Yep.
After that, it changes everything.
It does. And the relentless pursuit and understanding of what the end looks like and then working to that point.
That's a huge part
It
of
is so huge. I think as we continue to develop ourselves, that's where we have the understanding of starting with the end in mind, set timelines in place, milestones to achieve it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we operate that way with our operating system at R&R. We have quarterly rocks. We call them rocks. The 80% of what needs to be done, the top 3 priorities.
Okay.
And we have a 10-year vision, 3-year milestones, annual goals, break it down into a quarter to achieve that 1 year, to achieve the 3-year, to get to the 10-year.
Sure.
And whether or not you achieve them, it's up to the performance and everything else. But what you do is have something that you focus on. So your destination or the next destination is clear. The GPS coordinates to get there are fairly clear. Mm-hmm. And you just got to navigate through it. Now, there's going to be times when the bridges are out and the construction site's going on and the GPS changes. That's just part of the journey.
Fairly clear what you said is a huge point, because it can only be so clear if it hasn't been attained yet. I mean, and I think people want that security that, it's guaranteed. It just doesn't exist.
No matter how hard you try, no matter how good your intent is, nothing is guaranteed.
And I think that's what you have to be okay with. That's what you have to be. You have to be okay with the unknown.
That's
where everybody struggles at, Jake.
Let's end it with the beginning of this conversation. Don't link your confidence to your ability, because if you link it to your ability for an outcome and you fail with the outcome every time, then what are you going to measure your success off of?
Yeah.
But if you link it to your intent, your effort,
your process.
the value that you can create for others. If you link it to all that, you're going to have a good outcome either way. Because regardless of what the outcome is, you're not looking at the outcome as the measurable. That is just the desire to have as a side effect of who you become.
You know, it's I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
What's wild, but what just popped in my head is that the astronomical amount of things that I could have never anticipated that have happened to me in a good way and bad way is like so hard to wrap my mind around even as we sit here. I already was successful at step one. I felt that way since that day. I was 20 years old. I spent $5,000 that I borrowed to start my personal training studio. Jake, I've felt successful since then.
Yep.
Everything else has been a plus since that day. That was 1999, 2000. So like all these other crazy things, I pursued them. I pushed. I thought I could do it. I believed in it. Some worked, some didn't. I've felt that way since then. And that's, I think, one of the things, like you have to really say like, what really is that for you? Everything else on top of it is just truly the icing on the cake, bro.
Yeah.
This is something I could have never in a million years thought I would do. But now I'm doing it.
Because you didn't even know it existed.
Correct.
Didn't even
And
know
that's
it
the
existed.
point.
And that is the point of the mountain, right? That's the point of the climb. That's the point of the journey, and finding joy in it.
It's awesome. Pretty good. Good conversation, dude.
Let's wrap it up with that. Iron and Infrastructure podcast. Cory G.
Thanks for having me.
Muscle Island. My God, it's beautiful out here. Smoking cigars on Muscle Island. Looking at this beautiful job site that G's got going on over here.
It's going to get
looks like
better
a golf
hopefully
course.
with Jake's help soon. Appreciate you guys.
We're out. This episode is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. For all your supplement needs, go to maxeffortmuscle.com.